Welcome back to the Think Fast interview prep. We've got one more person joining us here. I have an amazing group here today. I've got a few job seekers. I've got some people that are just working on interview skills. And then I've got an amazing panel that we're going to pick your brain a little bit and get some more details on best practices for interviewing. I always like to get the input and advice from the coaches and hiring leaders and mentors in the field who are actively out there pounding the pavement, interviewing people, working on getting people back to work. So thank you so much for your generosity and your time and being here with us. And I'm really, really, really excited about it. It's really simple what we're going to do here. We're going to fire a couple of questions to our job seekers, and then our evaluators, our coaches, will give them some feedback. Don't worry, I have it all mapped out and planned because I'm an overthinker like that. So, Lyric, I know you're going to kill me here, but I am going to start with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. Well, I just want you to take about 2 minutes. So your goal is going to be about 2 minutes on all of the questions. And that's one thing we've seen in the hiring community. People's attention span lasts 1 to 2 minutes. So we want to get these questions answered very quickly, but at the same time, give information. When I say tell me about yourself, it's more in relationship to like you were in an interview. So tell me about yourself in relationship to your profession. How did you get started and where you are? Okay.
Okay.
All right, Lyric.
All right, awesome. Hey guys, I'm Lyric Crawford. I'm definitely a social butterfly. I love getting to know people and seeing what they're all about. Probably my favorite thing about where I work now is how much I've grown. I was able to start off just as an admin, and now I'm a project manager. I've gotten to teach a few classes there. I'm actually in school to be a sign language interpreter, and I was able to teach a sign language basics class. So that was pretty cool. I think also moving up to project management allowed me to get better at making my own decisions and things like that. And yeah, that's all I got.
You did great. Lyric, one thing I will tell you is no matter what, and I think part of what makes you so relatable and likable is your smile. It shines through, even though you're feeling super nervous, it didn't show through. The only thing I will tell you on your angle, as far as the camera, make sure you're close enough that they see your facial expressions because you are very expressive and it will help. But for today, this is fine. Just if you are actually in an interview, just make sure that you're kind of closer to the camera and that way they can see that beautiful face. All right. I am first going to go to Monique. Monique, can you provide some feedback, maybe some tips, what went well, and what would you have Lyric to work on for if she is in an interview?
Yeah, I would love to. So clearly that awesome personality just shines right through. So think about it. When people are hiring, they're hiring because they want to work with someone they like. They already know the technical skill set you have. So they want to work with someone you like. So I love the fact that, what you said was just so, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Like I could relate to that. It was so relatable. So I would my only level of feedback was to come off a little bit more confident and a little less, come off just a little bit more confident. And like Andy said, maybe move a little closer to the camera so people can see your expression and see that you're confident, because a huge majority of it is body language. So good job, young lady. Yeah.
Great feedback. Craig, I'm going to go to you for our second coaching here.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you being here. Lyric, good job. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
I would say that, again, I would echo what Andy said. One of your best traits is going to be that smile, because when you smile, typically people just want to smile back. And that's always a good thing. You always want to get that interviewer on the other side of the table smiling at something, either a joke or laughing or just liking you or whatever. Any way you can get them to smile is always a good thing. A couple of things that I would suggest for you is to rehearse that 2 or 3 times and record it. Your phone, Zoom meeting, whatever you got, I'm sure you could figure out a way to record it in 30 seconds. And you want to listen to the words and So you did say a few times, which is okay, because 95% of the people that talk say a bunch of times. But the more you can reduce that, the better for you. Also, you might want to just understand your audience. I have no idea who's going to be talking to you, but if it's younger people, then the phrase, "it was pretty cool," might be good. You want to keep that in. If it's a bunch of old fogies, the phrase, "that was pretty cool," might not be something you want to use. So again, just gauge it with your audience. And then the ending, the only thing that I thought of, which again, you weren't sure how to end that. You were going through some things and then you got to the end, you're like, that's like things like, that's it, I guess. Or you said things like that. I did things like that, which is a very vague thing. So again, just practice it. It's nothing. If you rehearse that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, all those things would go away and you'd be a great. So there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Great feedback. We all have crutch words. We do.
Everybody.
Paul, what's mine?
I don't know.
It's "and so."
Oh, that.
And you'll find me saying or hear me saying it a lot. I want you to kind of be aware of that, like what Craig was saying. But I agree with the feedback of know your audience and think about like this conversation ball, right? So in group therapy, they have like this conversation ball you pass from one person to the other. There needs to be this transition from you back to the person. So another analogy would be volleyball or tennis. So once you answer, if you can return it, you might say something like, "Is there anything else you would like to know? Is there anything I didn't cover?" A question would be a great way to turn that control of the conversation back over to the next person. Very, very good, Larry.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Sure. Okay, Merk, I'm going to pick on you a little bit here.
Okay.
Very good. All right. If you wouldn't mind, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Merk Harbor. I'm a brand marketer and creative director, and I help brands create unforgettable connections with their consumers, customers, and employees. And I do this primarily through immersive experiences, whether those are online experiences or physical events, which we haven't had a lot of lately, content like video content, storytelling, branded partnerships, and promotions. And there I am saying, I spent the last 5 years leading a hotel technology, marketing, creative, and PR group. And before that, I spent almost 2 decades on the forefront of building the Fossil brand and the culture. I'm a big culture person. Culture is very important to me. And I'm looking for a new role, whether it's B2C or B2B, where I can immerse myself into the company and help grow not only and engage the brand, but also be a part of the culture.
You, Mark. Very, very good. I have a strict rule about not giving feedback to people who are better at this than I am. So I'm going to keep it short here. I liked your little sidebars. I thought they were great. They make it relatable so it wasn't too buttoned up. At the same time, you have a polish and a professionalism that shines through. But those little moments that you allowed, they were not overkill. I thought they were just enough sprinkled in there to show some personality, to relate. And you kept it relatable when you're going into, we haven't had a lot of face-to-face interactions. We're all nodding along. So great job. I'm going to go to, let me see who I have here. Tyra.
Hi, Merk. What
Hi.
a great job.
Oh,
That was
thank
really
you.
good. Yeah, I thought as Andy said, you were very relatable. You were very clean in your delivery. I loved the way you shared your experience, what experience you were bringing to the table. But not only did you share that, but you also kind of guided us on what you were looking for. So it was pretty clear about what direction you wanted to go and your interest. And I thought that was really good. I thought there was one part that you talked about. I can't remember. There was a piece that you kind of used, maybe a terminology. I don't know if it was an industry terminology, but it wasn't familiar to me. Was it something with energy or I can't remember it specifically.
Hospitality technology.
No, it wasn't hospitality technology. I don't know if you guys on the call on the Zoom remember that specific one. But I mean, I love the way you talked about that you were a brand marketer and that you worked in the hotel technology area and online in online marketing. So I thought you were really buttoned up and very good. I'd want to hear more for sure.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Very, very good. And thank you, Tyra, for that. Merk, you might go back on the replay and see if you can identify what phrase she is speaking of, because in the room, especially on a panel interview, they may or may not have that technical expertise. So great time to root out any of those phrases that are not transferable or may need further explanation. So great job on that. Paul.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, I thought that was great. I think you're instantly likable and relatable, and you know what you know, and you know what experience you have. I counted your years. You had 5 years in your last role and 20 years at Fossil, which is 25 years. So if you want people to know that you've got 25 years, then go ahead and give them the years. If you think at all about who you're going, if you're worried at all about, like for me, people worry about me working with a boss that's 34, something like that. And there are a lot of 34-year-old bosses today. So if you just be cognizant that you highlighted 25 years and you can do that or not do that, it's up to you. Just know your audience and know whether or not you want to. If 25 years experience is part of the requirement, then you definitely want to have 25 years of experience. So and I tend to do that because I'm the age that I am, and I'm very conscious of my age and the younger age of people that I'm talking to most of the time. But I thought you did great. And I think, Tyra, you might have been talking about immersive experience. Possibly.
I'm gonna have to say, I think it may have been when he talked about his time at Fossil. I thought maybe it was like something specific. I didn't realize that it was a specific company that you were referencing. Honestly, I think that was what it was. And I'm like thinking, what is that? So maybe that was it. I don't know if I just didn't. And of course, I didn't have your resume in front of me to know what companies you had history with. So that might have been it.
Fossil's the watch and accessory company.
Yes, I know. I know now. I'm in my mind.
That's a pretty big brand to have worked for, and you might even want to say Fossil, the watch and accessory company.
Exactly. That's
instant credibility in terms of what size type.
Exactly.
Thank you.
But
very
awesome,
much.
awesome altogether.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So last week, I have a confession. I totally threw Jared to the wolves, and he thought he was logging on to watch, and I thought he was logging on to participate. So we did how I normally compromise. We did it my way. And so he got thrown to the wolves. So I apologized and told him that he is welcome to come back today. We are glad you're here. Thanks for juggling childcare. Please thank your precious wife or us. If you don't mind, Jared, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Andy. Thank you for having me on. My name is Jared Wietek, and I've spent the last 12 years of my professional career working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I started there part-time in college and went full-time after I graduated. And from there, I worked my way through the ranks, and one of the most notable positions I held is when I was promoted to branch manager of a new rental branch, a commercial truck rental branch. And there is where I grew it from 0 trucks all the way up into right about 100 vehicles, probably about $10 million in assets. And from there, I transitioned into the logistics side and was promoted to supervisor of vehicle acquisition and fleet logistics, to where I order vehicles for the entire DMV Metroplex and supervise teams of drivers that moved vehicles from various locations across the Metroplex. And I'm here now to use my education and the experiences I have to learn about the company here and see how I can fit in this role for you.
Very, very good. Am I the only one getting a lag there? Is it my computer or y'all?
No.
Okay.
We got it
Okay.
too.
Got a lag.
Okay, so just a little bit distracting for me. I think that you did a really, really good job of talking about some measurable results here, Jared, and including those in to say what you do and how you do it and what problems you solve, right? Anytime you can add in a measurable result, do it. I think that was really a smart move. Heidi, I want to go to you on this one.
So overall, I thought it was a really good presentation with the exception of the lag, which I know you can't control. I would say he had great eye contact. I would wish, because when he did smile, I wish he'd smile just a little bit more, just to make it a little bit warmer. And then I think at the same time, it would give a little more confidence feeling to it.
Okay.
But he might have smiled in the lag and I didn't see it. So I will throw that in there. I actually liked how he talked about learning, being that learner. I think that's a good way to kind of connect the dots and kind of showing the interest. I would also probably say maybe kind of like we talked with Lyric, adding the question to bring it back to the ball, to bring it back to the other person and what's going on, tossing it back and make it more conversational.
Okay. Thank you, Heidi.
Back, absolutely. Monique, I'm going to circle back to you.
Awesome. So good job, Jared. It was interesting that Heidi, you said you liked his eye contact. I can't really see his eyes. It's like shadow and it's dark and since Zoom is the primary method of communication now, I would just encourage you to maybe get a light or something so that they can see your smile. They see, that you're motivated and you're excited. And, I sense that you're a little bit more laid back person, which is awesome. But no, it is. But I would just say for interview purposes, I would maybe, assume a little bit higher level of energy because people equate laid back with lazy, not going to do anything. Whether that's true or not, is it fair? No. But I've got 15 plus years of interviewing and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you didn't even give the person a chance. Maybe they're an introvert. And people are like, yeah, no. So I would just encourage you to bring a little bit more energy. And then again, like that confidence, like you said, I guess the most notable role, or was it or was it not? You know what I mean? That's awesome to say, hey, I was promoted 5 times, my time there. The level with the role with the highest level of responsibility was XYZ role. After that role, I was promoted yet again. I would really hammer that in. Then I was promoted again. And then you said probably 10 million in assets. Look, ballpark figure. Yep. Approximately 10 million in assets and blah, 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 blah. So I would just encourage you to be more confident in you and your numbers, but good job.
Cleaning it up a little bit. Gotcha.
So I'm going to point out that it is our military veteran that is all on the confidence, guys. So Monique and I have this great rapport, and when we were talking, I would tell her, hey, your chevrons are showing again. And so, meaning that she was coming across very direct, but I think your feedback there, Monique, is spot on in identifying those. I always encourage people to get a ring light. I have this weird light that makes me look like I glow in the dark. So I have to be careful with that. But they have ring lights for $30. I have one hopefully coming on Amazon. We'll see. But I do recommend making sure that your lighting is there so they can see your eyes and see that facial expression. For our introverts or ambiverts, I'm learning these terms, but people who kind of float between, people don't believe me when I say I am naturally very introverted. I'm not naturally outgoing. When I meet new people, I still shake. The other day we had Toastmasters in person and I sat down at the table and my sister was like, you really actually do shake. I'm like, I know, I've been telling you. So it's not my nature to be in front of a room, and I still struggle with that a little bit, but learning to, when we go into an interview, it's lights, camera, action. And at the end, that's a wrap. We get to relax and we get to take that part off. And it's not being fake. It's pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, right? I don't want you to become Monique's version of Jared. I want you to let Monique push you outside of your comfort zone to go, hey, it's okay to take down these walls a little bit, especially if you're the type of person who, when you go in a room, you analyze it before you start talking to people. And when we have that kind of distance between us, people feel that. Probably the best person I've ever seen at this when talking to a crowd is Craig. Hands down. Like, just watching him speak and connect with an audience and just relax and be willing to be silly or goofy or send me texts that say you're weird. So he's very comfortable just connecting with people. So very, very good.
Can I make one more comment for Jared?
Absolutely, please.
In my experience, Enterprise has a well-known management training program, and people that come up through Enterprise's management program tend to be well trained. And I think it's okay to mention that in a way, like I was fortunate enough to go through the well-known Enterprise management training program.
Yes.
Because anyway, I think it's a good thing to say.
Every coach on this call is nodding. Great observation and feedback. And you might even consider world class. Like, I was fortunate enough to go through the world class. I love the phrasing there, Paul. Excellent.
Or even that you were selected, because that
Right.
adds another level of, you stood out from among the rest.
A little
Yeah.
more prestige.
I noticed that as well, the word choices. I would agree with Monique. Rather than saying I transitioned into another position, I was promoted into another position. Big difference. And I was promoted again, like she said. I was promoted again and again. I kept getting promoted. That's the message that you want to send. It's not I transitioned into something.
And I was selected for their world-class
Yeah.
management training program. Great idea.
See, by the time you leave here, you're going to have a great script. Very good. So Sten from our audience said, if you buy a ring light, don't buy the cheapest one. Make sure you can adjust the light intensity as well as temperature, warmness. So great feedback there. We are on LinkedIn Live, guys. I just want to point that out. Thank you, LinkedIn, for making that happen. I'm going to circle back. Lyric, are we up and running technology-wise? We're good?
Yes, my apologies.
No worries at all. It happens. Well, on this part, we're going to give you just a quick question. I'll tell you now who your evaluator will be, and then she'll be able to give you some feedback there. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Very good. This time, we're going to talk about project deadlines, and Tyra's going to give you some feedback here. But she's managed projects, and so she'll be able to speak to this a little bit. Lyric, I want you to think of a time that you were managing a project there at American Airlines, and the deadline, there was no way it was going to happen. What did you do to kind of inform the stakeholders, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I can definitely think of one of those. About the beginning of this year, there is a project that is the 3G to 4G upgrade to Panasonic that we do on our planes. And an issue came up where Panasonic said, we're not going to do this anymore. You guys have to do it. And the issue, one of the several issues actually, was that we wouldn't actually get parts until maybe October, maybe November of this year. And we had to have it all completed by February of 2022. So I brought up my concerns. It's a 16-hour job. It's too large to do on a normal line environment, which is what we use to usually rush things through. But I did talk to line planning anyway, and see if we can do a special visit on the IML line to get it completed faster and still be able to use the line and use a large job at the same time. But they said that was still too much work. So I brought it up to the team again. Hey, we can't do it on the line. We don't have enough base visits. What are we going to do? And they said, well, we need the line. It's our only choice. So I got together with the base planner, and we discussed the possibility of being able to put these aircraft in for work at way visits and livery visits, which are usually visits we don't do any other work on except for weighing the plane and painting the plane. But what we were able to figure out was taking one day off of these visits that were usually used for something else just to do this special maintenance. And so we were actually able to squeeze a job that really needed 1.5 years to be done into 6 months. And we're still scheduled to get those all completed in time. So there were about 40 aircraft that weren't going to make it that now will make it.
Amazing. I love how much detail you gave. I'll caution you on using acronyms, particularly if you are interviewing outside of industry. So just be aware of that. But I love how you gave details. You kind of talked through the conversation. So we felt like we were going through that process with you, and it made it relatable. So when you stop to talk about weighing aircraft, or when you're talking about painting, most people kind of understand that part of it. So even though we don't know the technical side, I think it was IML that you stated, just being aware that not everybody in the room may know that. So broaden it out a little bit. But I really liked your delivery here. Shorten your answer just a little bit to keep people moving with you. But I thought you did a fantastic job, Lyric.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I am totally in agreement with you on that, Andy. Number one, you did a great job, and you definitely expressed confidence in your answer and also your experience, and that you knew what you were doing in that particular case, and also that you were dealing with a problem. So you kind of presented the problem to us, which was really nice, as well as working through the solution. I agree with Andy on the fact that you were slightly too detailed in the description, just because as the interviewer, I would want to know that, like you said, the problem that you faced and how you solved it, and that you worked with multiple groups in order to accomplish and resolve the issue, as well as it sounded like you, in working with those other groups, you had to communicate to them the importance and the value of having them rally in to help you with the solution. So that really was, I think that was important to convey that. I definitely, the acronyms, we would want to not focus on those so much. I like the way you created the solution, as well as you talked about delivering it on time, because you were definitely stretched with the timing and the delivery and the challenges that you were faced with. So I thought you did a great job. I think you could probably just go up a little higher level in your delivery of it.
Okay,
great job.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I see this a lot with people, especially business analysts and project managers, who are used to having to give very detailed documentation that goes step by step by step. And so I really want to kind of go to Monique on this one. Monique, the reason I want to have you chime in here is because you come from an environment that is acronym central. If you've ever worked in government contracting or been part of our U.S. military, then you know that it's acronyms. How did you adjust in interviews and even in the workforce to transition your thought processes and communication delivery?
Yeah, so I would 100% have to agree with Tyra, because although the details are important, people want to know what was the problem, and what was the result. So they don't give a rip about the acronyms and then I had to work with Bob over in supply chain. And then, then I had to work with so-and-so in finance. Like, they don't really what they care about is, like Tyra said, like, hey, I had to work with 4 separate teams. We were able to pull it together. The deadline was 1 year. We got it completed in 6 months. And what we got completed in 6 months was whatever the 500 aircraft that blah, 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 blah. Then people go, oh, okay. So she gets stuff done. You're results oriented. You show that you're a team player. You show that you can pull things together, before time. People like to hear the results. So that didn't really answer your question, Andy, but yeah. So I quickly learned that acronyms, people don't want to hear me explain what an acronym is. And even for people military transitioning, like, they think people will be impressed, like, oh, I was a 71 Lima and I did a Charlie this and I was at first com. People are like, you are not in the military. I have no idea what you're talking about. But if I had said oh, I specialized in finance and personnel and I work with military spouses at the White House. And people are like, oh, okay. Because again, I told them what problems I solved and how I solved them. So I hope that answers your
every
question.
civilian in the room heard White House, right? That's what everybody heard, because one of the stages of learning is connecting what you're learning with what you already know.
So can I jump in again?
Yes, please, Paul. Absolutely.
I'm one of those nerds that would have asked you 100 questions about that story, because I was fascinated by the tension that was building between the things you were talking about. And I want to know what the IML is. And I would have asked you, what is that? And so that you may run into a circumstance where somebody gets really captivated by the story that they're telling you, and you're telling them. You just need to read while you're doing that and see if, I would have asked you, what's that? And would have wanted you to tell me that, and then tell me why it was so hard. What was the tension? Why was it hard to get time on that line? And I would have asked questions. So there's a potential, if you say something like IML, which is the integrated manufacturing line, or whatever it actually is, and somebody might ask you more questions. It depends on your interviewer. So I would stay away from the acronyms unless you're going to say, which is the integrated manufacturing line, and you can rattle it off like that. And it's important to the narrative, because this is the line that runs 24/7 and can't ever be disrupted. And that's what my feeling was, is you couldn't mess with the IML, right? That was the problem. You needed it to complete the task, but you couldn't mess with it. So I probably would have asked you some more questions about that. But yes, stay away from the acronyms. But you might find somebody like me will dive deep into something like that, because the fact that you got the results that you got, you shaved a year off a project?
Mm-hmm. Yes, a year.
That's pretty spectacular. And you're talking about big equipment and big manufacturing and big manufacturing lines, and that's pretty spectacular. So I probably would have asked you a bunch of questions.
Just know your audience.
Yes, let me point out one of the differences. And I haven't introduced everybody. That's kind of what my next steps are. But Monique's in human resources. Tyra is she's in project management and program management, has worked her way up through that and has been in leadership roles in that capacity. I come from a recruiter background and, of course, an education background. But Paul is an operations leader. He's an executive in operations. So he's thinking about it in a different capacity. So going into knowing your audience, where if somebody were to start asking you more questions about your story, one, that's a great sign because they're engaged with you. But the second is, in the next answer to continue to give those details. In giving details, you show I'm an expert in this. Just make sure if they're like, I have no idea what that means, then bring it down a level. But if they're asking you a lot of details, then meet them toe for toe.
Can I add something else in there? Please. You also might even consider presenting your result first to lure in your audience. Like she said, if it was, you said, I think it had to be done by February 2022. If you kind of talk right up front about, I delivered a project under budget, under time, and then go into, this was the problem and this was the challenge that I had to face in accomplishing that. Then right off the back, I hear you tell me that you did something really spectacular, and it doesn't get lost in all the details because you kind of ended it with that huge, wow moment, and I could have gotten lost in that. So yeah, that was really good. You could just bring it forward.
I love that.
Got it.
Jeff Vance from our audience said that he thought you did a great job. He would recommend maybe even dollarizing the benefit of the project. So I saved the company this much money or grew revenue by this much money. So if you can find a way to monetize that huge time savings, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I think having the time frame is impressive in itself. By saving a year on a project that is a huge project scope, I think that is still powerful. But anytime you can kind of quantified that, I think that's also great too. So great suggestion from the audience. I love this.
Thank you.
All right. Very, very good. Let's go to Merck. I would love for you to give us an example of a time that you maybe either built a brand strategy for an organization from the ground up, or maybe where they were struggling with brand recognition and that you helped transform that. So I'll leave that up to you.
Great. Well, I'm trying to think of, I have a couple of different examples as far as building a brand strategy from the ground up. One of the big challenges for the Fossil brand was most people knew Fossil for their watches and accessories, but they didn't know anything about the clothing or the apparel collection that we had. So one of the strategies that I had was actually coming up with an online promotion that was called Layer It On Me. And essentially I worked across 3 different departments. I worked with the digital team, with the marketing team and the brand team, coming up with an idea that would essentially build out on the website and also on the catalog and also be showcased in stores, a way to show that now Fossil has apparel, has clothing. So the main feature was kind of I'd say it had a big online engagement appeal. The main goal of this promotion was to acquire names. So acquiring new names to list. So making sure that we got the word out. And essentially what it was a online paper doll promotion. So we took pictures from the catalog, the backgrounds of the catalog. You could actually do like we're doing with Zoom right now. You could layer that on the background. You could actually drop in your face on the models in the catalog, and you could drag and drop like a clothing line, apparel, and you could win this collection of clothes. So this was a way for us to introduce at every touch point we had at retail in the stores, online and in catalog, that we had this new collection, that apparel, because everyone knew Fossil for the tin box and the watches or the handbag collection, but no one knew that Fossil had apparel. So this was a way to tackle, in a way, to always surprise and delight. So how can we always surprise and delight was a philosophy and strategy that we have. And this was a way to go about doing that, to make sure that a broader audience knew about a brand new collection.
Very good. Thank you. I love how relatable it was. Most of us, because we're aware of Fossil, it was a smart move to go there. And when you got to the part about most people don't know about apparel, I'm like, did I know that? Like, I find myself going, have I seen that? And wanting to explore more. So it was relatable. And I think that you did a great job of engaging and kind of weaving the story through. You presented the paper doll as if you were selling it. And I thought you did sell it. And that made me want to dive in a little bit. So just making sure that we have some quantifiable results maybe would be the only thing I would tweak there. But I thought it was a really, really solid answer. I want to go to Craig on this one.
Okay. Hey, Merck, good job, sir.
Oh, thank you.
I think that I think you have a polished but not too memorized is what I'm trying to say. Polished but not memorized. So you do want to rehearse these things, but not sounding so memorized like, oh my gosh, this is a robot. At the beginning, I felt as if it didn't come right at me right out of the gate. It was a little bit wandering, and I wasn't sure where you're going. And then you kind of hit on to where the problem or the result is. So if, again, you go back and listen to this recording, one of the things you might do is say, how could I take the first 5 or 10 seconds and wow them? Man, we had a massive problem. This is what it was. Here's how I solved it. Or I solved this massive problem by saving the dollars and monetizing all that, whatever it is, but kind of give it to me right up front so I don't have to wait for it or search for it a little bit. Also, you had probably at least, I tried not to count, but I counted at least 20 times where there was an or an ah or a so or So again, listen to that recording, see if you could just take some of them out so that it doesn't hit those too many times. And then the word essentially, another word that I'm not too sure that I like when people are saying, well, essentially, we kind of did this. And essentially, again, I think maybe Monique talked about that earlier, or Tyra, I'm not sure about these. Some of these words that we use like essentially or sort of or kind of, which you did not use sort of or kind of. I didn't hear that. But it's all in the same phraseology where when you say essentially we did a really good job, it just weakens the whole image a little bit.
Okay.
So I would say overall, great, but tighten it up. If you could take that same speech and just tighten it up slightly and make it a little bit more direct, I think is powerful.
Thank you very much. That's great. Great feedback.
Great feedback. I love it. Does anybody else? We have some time. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you're going to tell me a great story about a difficult problem and a brilliant solution, I want to know what the results were. You know,
Sure.
I want you got to close that one out with, and we increased the
Sales
by X percent. Because it was all a good story, but then it just stopped.
Understood.
Otherwise, great. Otherwise,
I always think of Forrest Gump on that. Like when he just stops talking, he's like, well, that's all I have to say about it. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know where else to go with this. So good feedback, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
it was a great story.
Yeah, so I wanted to say some things that are real, maybe not as obvious. So when you're on the company side and you're interviewing 10, 20, 30, 40 people at a time, look, I'm sometimes my brain is like, yeah, okay. So like Craig said, I mean, I was back there like, yeah, like, I just want to know, can he do the job? I mean, the story is great, and maybe there will be people who can focus and listen to the entire story, but a lot of people are like, can he do the job? Check, check. Was he personable? Check. You have a very engaging conversational tone, but if you bullet points like, yeah, we created this solution, this is what it looked like, we said, I'm like, oh, okay. And quite honestly, the story of it, I'm like, yeah, anyway, so yeah, he's good to go with it. And I probably may not even hear, so Paul would be the one that wanted to hear all of the details and like, oh, well, when you said the paper down, like, how did you make it? No. But there will be others of us that are like, okay, yeah. So I just wanted to add that little feedback.
That's great. Thank you.
I think we've heard this here before. Know your audience.
I was going to say, and this is where, so when we're talking panel interviews, there will always be somebody in the room you're most likely to connect with. So you're going to focus your attention on the person you're least likely to connect with, because the other person's naturally going to be drawn toward you. So try to focus your attention on the person who's least likely. So you're expressive, you're the storyteller. Monique is driver through and through. Drivers are like, let's go, let's get to the point. Like, what are you trying to tell me? You've got 3 seconds, go. And she's had to be very decisive in her career. So for an expressive, the hardest thing is when you're interrupted. And you want to connect on the story level. For a driver, the hardest thing is to listen when they know where it's going. And so trying to connect those two, and maybe sometimes you engage in the story and the details because you still have to capture Paul's attention, and hey, y'all are going to connect on the details, and he's the how person. But sometimes keep it succinct, and Monique will respect you for that, right? So just having a mixed approach, and it shows that I can adapt to communication, particularly in a panel interview. So great. Heidi or Tyra?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that I would like to know too is what you did specifically, not the we,
Sure.
but what your part was in it. It was a very big project. So let us know what was your action, even if you led a team or if you made a decision and created the specific campaign that was then used, let us know what your role was in it.
Right.
Thank you. That's great.
The we part that I did appreciate was when he talked about working with the other teams. So like by mentioning the cross teams, I actually appreciated that part of it because it did show that he could collaborate outside of his own area. So
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, I want to, before I go to Jared, I'm going to give you a little bit to sweat it out here. I want to talk a little bit about our panel and how you guys got to be here today and what makes you amazing. So let's just talk about that really quick. Think Fast interview prep came from me sitting at Toastmasters because I want to improve my communication delivery. So I do recommend Toastmasters as a great organization, but they have this table topics that they do where they do have an and counter, and they have this timer that you have 1 to 2 minutes, and you have to speak for at least 1 minute and not more than 2 minutes. When I was listening to people do this, it connected with me from coaching job seekers that this is where we struggle the most when we're asked a question that we're not prepared for. So when we are prepared and we have our star story ready, it's great. But when we're not prepared, some of us blue screen. So I wanted to create this to connect with people and connect job seekers with coaches. So it's not just my voice all the time, but that it's industry experts who are out there living it, which brought us to Paul Klotz has been with us every week. He's volunteered so much time with us, and I appreciate that. You always pick up something different, and he is a fractional COO, best known for his ability to come alongside startups, grow them, and get them to their goals. And so, Paul, thank you so much for being here.
I also want to say it's so much easier to do what we're doing than it is to do what the candidates are doing.
Very, very
So
good point.
We really appreciate how hard it is to speak to a group like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Heidi Torres. So you have a new announcement. Do you want to announce that, or do you want me to announce that?
I'm happy to share. So I have a new book coming out in August called The CEOs of Networking, which stands for Connecting, Engaging, and the Opportunities to Serve. Whoops, there's one. So this is actually not the cover of the book. It's just kind of a placeholder for it. But yes, I'm super excited. And it is my goal to help job seekers because like you, last year I was out of work, and through networking, I actually landed work and landed also my new role. So yes.
Very good. Which you are now the talent acquisition manager at Connect Recruiting.
I am. Today is
Very
my
good.
first day.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I already have a copy of the book pre-ordered. I can't wait for it to come out. Very good. Tyra, you are Maximize Your Job Search alumni and amazing, amazing. You're doing product enablement for Silicon Valley Bank. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. I'm on the client enablement side, and we are creating a online banking product, a next generation online banking product. And I am working with a team to enable that for our clients, our commercial clients.
Very good. One thing that I always use your story for is to talk to people who are pivoting industries and need to take those transferable skills and apply it to a new opportunity. And you're a great example of somebody who has done that successfully. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Craig Bohall, another Maximize Your Job Search alumni and director of distributor success, right? I'm saying that wrong, am I?
No,
At
perfect.
Casper.
Yep.
Very good. Well, I know how long have you been at Casper now?
About 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. And doing amazing things already.
Yep.
Thanks for being here. Monique Gibson, the CHRO at JMCO. Here, Lyric, how's that for acronyms? JMCO Consulting Group. Monique, thank you so much for being here. It's just an honor.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. And if you haven't stalked Monique's page lately, it's worth going there just to see her dancing video. I'm just saying.
What?
Yeah. Amazing.
I'm gonna go there right now.
Yes, do it.
I'm writing that down. Don't forget.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Monique.
Yeah.
When your page views goes up, you know why.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I love it. Godwin says he's loving this conversation. Thanks for being here. We've got some, let's see. Dan was saying he was not aware. Hey, this is the first time we're on LinkedIn Live. So those of you who are in the audience, I'm trying to track that a little bit, but I'm really excited to get it on LinkedIn Live. I think that's the perfect platform for it. All right, Jared, last question of the night.
Okay.
All right. One thing you and I have talked about is your passion for building people and developing high-performing teams. Can you tell us some of your strategies that you use to really coach and mentor team members?
Sure, absolutely. I like that question. I'm going to write it down in 1 second.
Just in case they give you the option to pick what question. All right.
No, I just want to remember it for later. So I am really proud of the fact that when I was an assistant manager, I helped promote, get through promotion 3 employees, which means, as Paul mentioned earlier, the well-renowned management trainee program that Enterprise has. Part of that is taking tests with senior leadership to prove that you have knowledge of not only the business, the front with customers, but also on the back end, knowing the business, where your costs are coming from, where your revenues are coming from, and how your decisions affect those costs. So some of the strategies that I used was to put some of the people that I helped get promoted through basically a gauntlet of simulated questions that senior leadership would put them through. So that involved setting times to practice, much like what we're doing here today. And then the second would be to do live questions and making sure that they understand where every dollar, every decision that they make affects the bottom line. And that's how I really set the people that I've mentored up for success, and that's apart from other candidates.
I know every time, at least once, I thought I was going to make it through. I made it to 654 without it. All right. So rookie mistakes. All right, Jared, Heidi pointed this out before. You can't control internet speed. That's the only issue we're having. In the event somebody in the future says that there's an internet issue, not on this call, but you could always request to turn your camera off to save some bandwidth to keep that lag, because what it does is it almost stretching out your voice a little bit. So it slows down the pace. It makes it a little bit harder to keep up with. But one thing I really liked is that you were giving specific examples and trying to relate it to what we're doing. It goes back to connecting prior knowledge. So I thought that was a really strong technique. And you were able to take a situation that you were familiar with, prepared to answer, but by ad-libbing these little sidelines, these comments that you had, it made it not seem scripted. And I thought that was a really, really good move. And I like that the coaches are all feeling free to jump in here. I was going to go to, who was I going to go to? Heidi, I was going to go to you.
So actually, I love that. Because mentoring is really near and dear to my heart. So I loved how you learn and talked about the enterprise training, and you brought that in, and how you referred to the panelists. So I would encourage, kind of like Andy said earlier, is to connect with other panelists, but make sure that you are evenly, like you're not just all on one, so that don't want them to feel left out. But I liked how you connected the reference, the learning on that. I like the phrasing, the gauntlet, and making it the bottom line, because a lot of times people don't even think about mentoring as helping the bottom line. So I like that connection to that. That just near and dear to my heart. So yeah, I thought you did really well. The only other thing is, the connectivity.
Love it. So notice here, because, and one way you can tell when you get creative with those, with your phrasing, the authors in the room are like, yes, like we're on the edge of our seat. So people who are writers who are naturally geared towards that storytelling, that expressive, that they were going to connect with that. So great strategy. Again, you pulled in somebody new by using these phrases, and it's such a small technique, but very, very powerful technique. Good. Any of our other coaches have feedback there?
I was going to say the pacing to me is a little slow, but I don't know if that's the internet or
Right.
Jared, if that's really how you talk. So again, I'm going to say the same. Say that again.
You know, I speak very precisely, especially during, you know, high stressful or pressure situations.
Okay. So you can be very precise, but you can also pace it really well. So if I speak precisely, but I speak a little slowly, and then my pace starts to drag, you see what I mean? So we can be precise, but we can keep things moving. So just watch your pacing. But again, I'm going to give you the same thing to Merck, to Lyric, to you, Jared. Really just go record yourself. If you record yourself and listen to it, you probably wouldn't need most of us coaches, because you probably go, oh, well, I didn't like that, or wow, kind of like that. But now I can't even see my eyes. It's too dark in here. You know, where'd the light go? And so you'll notice these things. Oh my gosh, it's too much bright light. So just record yourself. Please go record yourself, and you'll find stuff. I promise you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. And you can even do that on Zoom. You can log into Zoom by yourself and record it.
Yep.
So very good. Well, I'm going to end the live stream here. We appreciate everybody being with us. You guys have been great in the comments, and look forward to next week at the same time. And we will be off for July 4th week. So 2 weeks from now, we won't be here, but next week we will be back. We've got another great panel and some amazing job seekers. If the panel and participants would be willing to stick around for just a minute, and we'll wrap up and then we'll be done. Thanks, everyone.